Thanks, everyone. Thanks for joining today's webinar, while we look at solving the challenges of the industrial enterprise and how visionary render is revolutionizing VR. It will be a practical day today with many case studies from visionary render customers. Visionary Render is Virtalis' immersive visualization platform built with the industrial enterprise in mind. And as you can see, we have an exciting session where we start with the needs and challenges of industrial enterprises and what are they facing. We'll look at ROIs, case studies, but we also look at the various ways enterprises can immerse themselves in the virtual models created in Visionary Render. And you will understand the power and the importance of decision making and how that is accelerating the enterprise across the product lifecycle. Interesting topic towards the end is on the metaverse, and while the jury is still out, more and more experts want you to believe there is not much time left developing a strategy for the metaverse. So Andrew will take you along, share his vision, and also explain how Virtalis is enabling enterprises helping them embark on their metaverse journey. So let's wrap it up. Join the Q&A, share your questions in the box, and we have time for 2 questions, so I hope your question will make it to the end. Don't be shy, get engaged, and we'll select 2 of them. All of you will get an answer on any question that will be added in one of the chat boxes here in the panel. So a quick look at the industrial context before we hand over to the rest of the team. So without a doubt, the most important challenge and need is how to become a winner in a hyper-competitive market, because the battle is on many fronts. Customers are getting more demanding. Companies are struggling with skill gaps. Products, services are becoming increasingly more complex. However, probably the most important driver for this hyper competition is disruption. And that's also the look that you see on top of this slide. Disruption is happening from companies armed with strong digital capabilities. And as we all know, that can change complete business models. And that disruption leads to increased competition. Increased competition typically leads to cost reduction and pressure on costs and improving customer experience, which will lead companies to do more on new digital disruption, which basically creates more disruption in the end. And basically organizations are ending up and markets are ending up in this never-ending cycle. A recent research from McKinsey, which is also shown in this picture, is that 36% of the CIOs experienced disruption that impacted the operating cost competitiveness. And that's important, and that's also the theme of today. With the visionary case studies that you will see in a while, they will help enterprises work better, work smarter, more efficient, and in the end to become more competitive. So next up, I'd like to invite Andrew, Virtalis CTO, and
thank you very much, Dimitri. Great to be here. So we want to kick off really this webinar with a bit of a reason for why do we need essentially enterprise XR. So how is enterprise XR?
There you are. I was waiting for your camera, my friend, so I'm glad you made it. So explain us about the drivers of VR in the industrial setting, and go ahead.
Yeah, certainly. So I mean, this will be a diagram that's familiar to many people who obviously operate, particularly in the manufacturing engineering space. So this is ultimately how we see, certainly at Virtalis, the product value chain, but more importantly, how we see where virtual reality fits into this model and acts as a solution and ultimately an enabler to some of the things which we need to achieve in modern engineering and manufacturing processes. So if we start off with some of the challenges, many of you will be obviously familiar with these. We have a need now for global connected supply chains. So we're no longer just dealing with in territory or even local manufacturing facilities. We have teams and parts of manufacturing process distributed completely across obviously across the globe. In addition, we're getting more complex products. We're seeing them in manufacturing today. The complexity of some of the parts and the systems and how they're being pulled together. You're dealing with hundreds of suppliers, again, completely across that supply base. And ultimately, we're moving to a scenario where we have to move to much more lean manufacturing processes. So how do we start to look at ensuring we've got this constant feedback cycle as part of the product design process, and even during the manufacturing of that, how does a product continuously evolve to design challenges that we're seeing both during manufacturing stages, and then even as we move on, as we start to look towards digital twins, how we're actually seeing data come about from real-time information that we're seeing directly within the actual life of that product. I think one of the key themes as well, which we're certainly seeing from a Virtalis perspective, is how do we essentially reuse data and reuse that information contextually and visually across all elements. We see very much VR providing a key role in not only starting off at the very beginning during design cycles, but actually also reutilizing those visual assets throughout the life of the product. And this can be seen, for example, in training scenarios. So how do we onboard people within the field to actually be able to view and see this information? Through to, as we've discussed before, the concept of digital twins. How do those virtual models continuously update throughout the life of that product? The way we've kind of addressed this as an overall solution is what we call the Virtalis VBOM, so a virtual bill of materials, essentially, that sits within there. And it's fed from numerous different data sources throughout the product lifecycle. So straight away from PLM systems, where we're importing data in real time from various different CAD importers and product lifecycle management solutions. We're seeing real-time unstructured data imports coming from IoT data and sensors, which we're seeing in the real world. The ability to import and provide extra contextual and real-life information from data sources which are not necessarily akin to simple CAD models, but bringing stuff from LiDAR sensors, point cloud information, bringing all that information into the model, and even geoscience data. So how, from a manufacturing perspective, do you start to actually see this in live as a complete virtual environment? And one of the key principles as well to all of this is having that connectivity and that extensibility. So how do we make sure we have a solution which provides an open API construct so you can manipulate information going into the virtual environment, and equally how you can actually extract information from it throughout that entire value chain. That's not to say this isn't without challenges, and we know many of the challenges which we see today and have addressed as part of our product offerings and solutions at Virtalis. We have seen and operated against the huge models and huge data sets requirements which are coming in, and the need to be able to see everything from an entire virtual world, an entire ship, an entire plane or aircraft, through to this smallest minute detail, all within one model. And to do that in real time, to do that in a way that doesn't require expensive time spent by engineers on each import, but how automation is introduced into the process to actually make sure that what we're doing is implement once, reuse many as part of that solution. And the other thing, as we've said before, this world is becoming a connected world across the supply chain, across the enterprise. how is information and data kept up to date consistently in one place and consumable by many different departments, depending on the context in which that department wishes to consume that information. Trying to address some of these challenges, what we've created as one of the core software pillars of Virtalis is Visionary Render. Visionary Render is the core authoring environment and visualization facility where we create and obviously operate model development within there. One of the key features and capabilities of Visionary Render is the ability to interact with huge models and data sets. So that ability to see entire ship solution, or entire aircraft, down to the smallest rivets within the body and within the structure. And that's important because that reduces cognitive load. So from a point of view of people working on this, either from a training scenario or from a design review scenario, they can see this in essentially real life through a virtual environment and understand how things will actually operate as it becomes the physical reality manifestation of that product. Key benefits to that is obviously you're identifying issues early in that supply process and in that design process. You can see problems before they go to build, which obviously reduces risk, certainly from a project perspective. It allows rapid iterations, the ability to constantly change prior to actually committing any physical build against that. Key drivers and ROI against that is not only time, it's also obviously investment in the, say, pre-tooling and other information, obviously which you've gained as part of that process. And the other thing, another kind of key ancillary feature that sit around this as well is part of the rich feature set of Visionary Render allows you to apply various different solutions such as textures, lighting to make the models realistic and very relevant for people obviously operating in the environment. Additionally, you can also embed other documents, other contextual information and assets that you may have available, particularly relevant in training scenarios. There may be checklists, PDF manuals, or even embedded videos that can also be displayed within the virtual environment as part of that training solution. So next up, let's talk about some of the key use cases in which XR is relevant, particularly within manufacturing engineering. We've talked briefly about design reviews, so actually being able to understand and see very early on in the value chain what is obviously working, what is correct, what needs to be changed and modified during that process. Virtually prototyping those assets, so being able to essentially see and understand in one-to-one context how those will actually form and how they will look. Manufacturing floor layout, so layout and factory plant planning, so how from an optimization point of your factory floor, how will this fit, how will this work, and obviously all the associated health and safety aspects that sit alongside that. Virtual training, very relevant, particularly in the whole concept of reuse. So being able to reuse that information that created all the way back in design process, to be able to see that to training people in the field or prior to obviously entering the field. So they've got that information of what to expect on site. We have some real good use cases there, particularly around things such as the oil and gas industry from a safety perspective, understanding what's actually happening before they arrive on site to conduct any repairs or installation work within there. Contextual digital twin, which is very relevant certainly in today's connected world. We're seeing IoT data linked to real-time, essentially real-time aircraft, real-time ships, real-time factory layouts, so you can actually visually see what is happening and what are the conditions of parts within the virtual world as part of that as well. And then the other kind of, I suppose, the final elements of this really is how does that extend just beyond that manufacturing base? So how do you start to look into collaborating with suppliers, bringing their information into your model, understanding and having relevant conversations about some of the challenges that you're seeing as part of this build or design process. And then the final element of that, how do you actually mobilize, should I say, your sales force into being able to go out there and actually show this information to some of your clients and customers based on actually something which is tangible, something which is real, and something which the clients can engage with and see. So there's some of the kind of the key use cases which we have around this. Kaushal, who's up next, He's going to talk through some of those in example and walk through some of those scenarios. So over to you, Kaushal.
Thank you, Andrew. Hello, everyone. My name is Kaushal Desai, and I would like to take this time and highlight Visionary Render by showing a few demos. Today, we will see how Visionary Render was used to do design reviews, floor layouts, and virtual training. Let's look at a scene I've pulled up here. This scene was created for a customer to visualize testing of an engine in a test cell. By using the viewpoints on the left, you can fly to important parts of the scene like so. Now, let's load the motorcycle engine into the test cell. This test is meant to illustrate how the engine is loaded, how the tooling is engaged, and show RPM being generated by the engine. As the engine is loaded in a test cell and we engage the tooling, you can see the sensors on the right are turning green, indicating everything is in working order, and now we can start the test. Once we run the test, we can see how many RPM the engine is generating. And you can see higher RPMs as we shift the transmission into higher gear. Based on the results, the engineers can confirm any design flaws and identify risks ahead of time, and can reject abnormal or substandard engines. Engineers can also use dynamic sections like this to get a clear view of inner workings of a component, or to see if there will be any collision between moving parts, and adjust tolerances as needed and fix their designs. In the same scene, there is a maintenance procedure training to replace driver shaft for the test cell. This takes the user through how to lock the test cell for procedure, change parts, apply lubrication, and reassemble parts. Creating a virtual testing scene greatly reduces lead time for customers, as they were able to validate the design test procedures without ever having to build a prototype, saving both time and money. For collaboration purposes, this scene can be collaborated upon across organizations to bring global teams together in one common virtual environment. So people from non-engineering backgrounds can use this visualization to understand the complex product and see how it works. As you can see here, collaboration with team members is as easy as going to File, Windows, Network, and providing their IP address and hitting the Connect button. By applying Visionary Render for design reviews, organizations can achieve up to 45% faster project completion, 40% cost reduction, 30% decrease in product development time, and up to 67% design sign-off based on virtual models alone. Of course, these numbers will vary from customers to customers. Let's look at an example of how Visionary Render can help with layout planning. This scene was created for a leading healthcare equipment supplier who had a problem of communicating design intent and layout of surgical rooms to their end customer. These surgical rooms are highly complex with many configurations of equipment to support different medical procedures, different combinations of medical teams, and personal preference on placement. The existing process used 2D architectural plans overlaid with symbols of each equipment. This often led to misunderstanding between the client and the supplier. With Visionary Render, the organization was able to create an immersive layout planning, enabling them to analyze performance and special implications of the equipment in the operating room. So the clinical design team was able to move the medical equipment and replicate their exact range of motion and control points as seen here. This allowed the team to check operating procedures in any combination. Another key feature the clinical design team used was the preset scenarios to quickly set up a new room. This allowed them to iterate between different proposed solutions, as seen here. To further add value, the clinical design team used a Visionary Render and the immersive headsets so the surgeons and anesthesiologists could experience the room on a 1-to-1 scale. This demonstrated how the room and proposed layouts would work. As they are looking around, they can discuss the line of sight and accessibility to the patient. They can use the measuring tool to find the distance between two equipment or operating staff, as seen here. Although this example was in the medical industry, keep in mind visionary render can help in layout planning across industry verticals, where it is crucial to do the right installation on the first try and reduce rework. For example, in the oil and gas industry, say if you have an inactive refinery which you want to start up and make modifications to. With this brownfield project, you can use Visionary Render to bring in point cloud data of the existing assets and bring in CAD data for new piping and other equipment and or machinery you wish to place in and around the refinery. With the help of Visionary Render, you'll be able to visualize the best installation sites, rerouting of utilities, measure distance of accessibility for repairs, piping clashes, and other obstacles. By planning for these issues, you can make the right decisions the first time, every time, and save a lot of downtime later due to rework and reduced cost. In the case of this customer, the visualization created by Virtalis provided clear understanding internally of the proposed solution they offered to their client. On the client side, it increased their confidence in the supplier. Since they were able to plan everything up front, there were fewer problems during the installation process. The client managed to reduce costly adjustments by over 30% and save several $100,000 due to improved understanding and being able to see issues earlier on in the design process. Let's look at our virtual training scene that was developed for one of our customers. The idea here is to have their employees immerse into a virtual dialogue, giving a feeling of presence without being there. There was motivation from the customer for using virtual reality to reduce costs and delays. The guided instructions in the scene are placed for new students but can easily be hidden to evaluate knowledge retention. This scene allows new engineers to rehearse the procedures before they service the real machine. By going to the virtual training, the engineer can run through the procedures to identify any possible problems in servicing. Also, stage sequences prevent removal of Part B before Part A and requires correct tools to be used. Being fully immersed in HMD, the engineer is required to physically move around the confined area to perform actions just as they would on the plant floor. Being able to run through the procedures 10 times in the time taken to do it once physically improves knowledge retention and saves time. By doing this training virtually, employees are not required to visit manufacturing plants or travel to remote locations. This keeps them away from dangerous situations and reduces the risk of costly production errors and downtime. With virtual reality training, teams can now react and prepare for serious incidents and rehearse for the best response. With virtual training, there will be less operational risk and there is less risk of costly, time-consuming, and potentially reputation-damaging safety incidents. Customers who have applied Visionary Render to create training scenarios such as this one have experienced ROI up to 78% improved retention, 40% faster required knowledge gained, 40% reduction in training costs, and up to 30% reduction in training time. Of course, these are just a few examples of what Visionary Render can do. Visionary Render is the complete VR solution for supporting the lifecycle of your product in every stage, either from design, prototyping, sales, maintenance, operations, decommissioning, and it can also be connected with PLM system to build a digital twin. I'm hoping the demos I have shown today have sparked some interest, and if so, I welcome you to reach out to our sales team to talk about our product. With this, I pass it off to Paul McColl for the next session of this webinar. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Kaushal. That was a great introduction into some of the things that people can do with Visionary Render. Well, hello everyone. I'm Paul McColl. I'm visualization system architect, and I'd like to take a bit of time on telling you how we can use collaborative systems, large-scale collaborative systems, to immerse you in this Visionary Render world. So, for years, we've got companies putting a significant amount of effort into their CAD. And they're building detailed and high-value sources of data. But we rarely use all of this data to its maximum benefit. And as we've seen and heard, Visionary Render can change all of that. It can be linked to your PLM and linked to IoT sources, and you can build effective, high-value digital twins. and it can be distributed right across your business. One of the things is that you can import with Visionary Render almost any CAD. So you can optimize your design processes, and you can review collaboratively with people. And that helps you to develop faster designs and develop better designs. You can then take Visionary Render into the planning phase and plan and optimize your factory layout, for example, or your manufacturing processes. You could share these models with the marketing team, and you could be marketing your products weeks, months, or even years before you build anything. Training for assembly can be done, training for installation or maintenance, and that can start earlier than ever before because we can do it virtually. And this will deliver better and faster results. You can use Visionary Render to monitor, operate, maintain more effectively. But don't forget, some of the most complicated engineering problems come in the decommissioning phase of a product. In fact, with these eco-friendly times, we're seeing that decommissioning is now becoming repurposing or even second life. Now, if you can plan for all of these things and rehearse them and optimize them from day one, you're going to benefit. But the greatest benefits are when you build and maintain this complete digital thread, combining all of these areas and use visualization at every stage. But we're very aware that people use one or the other, and they might dip in at various stages. However, whatever you do, you need the tools to see what you need to see, when you need to see it, and with a device that's appropriate to that particular use case. So, what are people doing? Well, people use a wide range of systems. We see HMDs everywhere now, and they're great for personal review and interaction. You can use large-scale power walls that allow you to interact with your data at a one-to-one scale. And these are brilliant for group review because you can put large audiences in front of the screen. Screens can be made even more immersive by adding a floor, and they allow you to look down. This allows you to work with your hands at products that might be down near your feet. It really wraps you in that scene. But the ultimate immersive systems are often being considered to be cubes or caves. And they wrap you in high resolution 3D images. And these can have a spatial resolution that are far in excess of any HMD. Also, and finally, there are portable solutions that let you take VR on the road, whether that be a small kit in a flight case, or whether that be something like a portable power wall that you could set up in a foyer or reception area, as we're seeing in this image here. But most importantly, all of our systems can be connected together using Visionary Render and used collaboratively, whether they're in a single factory or at the other ends of the world. They can all be connected together and work in real time. A great example of how people are using this visualization technique is with BAE Systems. They've got surely some of the most complicated products in the world, warships and nuclear submarines. And they've been using VR technologies, they've been using Virtalis technologies for design, review, and manufacturing for more than 20 years. They've really leveraged how Visionary Render and VR systems work together to virtually and collaboratively build and test designs before cutting any steel. So they now have more than 20 systems. And yes, we would consider them to be a fairly large user. But advanced visualization, or VR, is not just for the massive global businesses. Businesses with only 1 or 2 CAD seats use advanced visualization as well. I mean, in this image here, this is an architect based in Malaysia who are using Visionary Render and a Virtalis Active Wall to add that all-important third dimension to what they're doing. This allows both designers and clients to have a better sense of both space and volume. It allows them to evaluate the quality of the spatial volume within that building and allows customers to get an accurate feeling of that space. And it's this feeling that you really can't get using drawings or 2D images. In VR, you actually experience your design for the first time. So let's quickly see in a process where VR might fit in. Our engineer here is at the design stage of a product. So he builds his design in CAD and he reviews this in his own personal HMD. HMDs are fantastic for personal use. They're low cost, easy to distribute, and readily available. However, they're not ideal for group review. They can actually limit communication. You're in fact isolated from the world when you have this face mask on. You cannot read facial or bodily expressions. And this is a huge part on how humans communicate. In fact, it's over 50% of the way in which we communicate is through facial and bodily movements. Just think, as an example, how non-verbal messages can be reinforced. When we want to be sure of a message we send somebody, we even add an emoji, a facial expression. So, how does he take this to the next step? So this engineer now wants to review this design with his team. If they're remote, he can do this collaboratively with Visionary Render. He can connect people together across the internet or across a LAN, or he could use some of our cloud-based visualization tools. And we can share complex models with a wide range of devices and allow them all to collaborate in real time simultaneously. Now, as teams are returning to the office, things are beginning to change, and people are coming back to face-to-face discussions, as communication this way is faster and it's more assured. So we're seeing large-scale one-to-one visualizations like power walls coming back. They're coming back into use. Groups can share in their experience from multiple locations, and they can all dial in together and collaborate in real time by linking them using Visionary Render in 3D. They can link these large-scale systems together. In fact, laptops can collaborate with HMDs that can collaborate with large walls and do this all seamlessly. These systems are flexible and can be used for multiple of non-VR uses, so their expense can be spread across other areas for corporate presentations, customer experience centers, training centers, and that sort of thing. It isn't just for design. Our designer now wants to take this to the next step. They want to do a trial build. They want to work on the process of assembly, or they want to train the engineer on how to assemble the product they've designed. So what you're seeing here is a system that was installed in order to plan and design work cells. So working with their hands was absolutely vital. And a floor or wall immerses you more and allows you to do this work with your hands far more naturally. The product pops out of the floor like a hologram. It feels physical. It appears to be in the room with you. And with professional high-end positional tracking systems, it means we can track their head movement, so you can walk around it. We can track their hand movement, so they can reach out and touch it. We can even track their finger movement or their whole body movement. And you can even track tools, so they could stand in this world and use tools in the same virtual space. What's more, this client even combined this with HMDs to be truly collaborative with Visionary Render. For the highest resolution and most immersive environments, we've got cubes. Cubes or caves require a greater investment, and historically, they've needed quite a significant amount of space. But technologies are developing really rapidly at the moment, and space requirements are reducing. One issue with systems like this has always been the immersive capability, and it's the limitation on the number of simultaneous you can use in a single space. Typically, you could only have one tracked person, but now we have multiple point of view projectors that solve this problem by allowing several people to have their own unique point of view and collaborate together on a single screen. You can see in this picture 3 people collaborating on the same product at the same time, each having their own point of view. We can see their facial expressions. We can know exactly what they're thinking. Finally, we have VR LED walls. They're now here. The technology is being distributed, and we're installing them as we speak. LED walls are made up of lots of smaller tiles, so they're immensely scalable while maintaining their resolution. And the resolution is fantastic now, with pixel pictures well below 1 millimeter. Brightness and contrast are far better, allowing that they beat projection by a long way in this respect. And screens don't suffer from the same ambient light problems. So it means you can work in full daylight. In fact, full sunlight. These systems are very, very capable. But most importantly, it's a space issue that's been solved. as they can be mounted on a wall. They take up only a few centimeters of space. So the system is maybe 6 or 7 centimeters deep, and you need a cooling space behind that. So you might use up 40 centimeters of space of your room. And the life expectancy is so much better. It's 5 times that of a current laser projector. So their eco credentials are really good as well. So what have we learned? So from all this, we can see that Visionary Render can work hand in hand with a huge range of visualization systems, head-mounted displays, walls, cubes, caves, laptops, whatever you like. Systems can be chosen or designed to meet your specific needs, to solve your problems. They're matched to unique use cases, and we try and choose systems that meet your use case, your space requirements, and indeed your budget requirements. So that brings my part and the basics of VR in systems in the industry to a close. I hope you found that really useful. We can dig deeper in this face-to-face or at another time on future webinars. Until then, I'm going to hand you back to the team. Thank you.
Thanks, Paul, for that. So on our final topic for this webinar, we're here to talk about the future of enterprise VR. This is how essentially we, as Virtalis, see certainly what is going to be coming up over the next few years, but also how this links into the concept of the engineering metaverse. One of the key pillars of what we're terming enterprise VR is this concept of democratized visualization. What we mean by that is the ability to provide meaning, understanding to any conversation through the effortless use of visualization. And that is by providing solutions and services that allow all end users of the enterprise to essentially consume this visual data, whether you're from the engineering background through to all the way through to your sales force and dealing internally within the organization, but also externally with partners, suppliers, and clients. And the key thing about that is being able to allow users to essentially naturally review, collaborate, and make effortless change in a shared environment, embedded directly into processes, bringing in multiple sources of data across not only your organization, but from your supply chain, from your partners, and even, as we discussed earlier, within the world of digital twin, that information is coming back from what is actually happening within the real world and the live environment. The metaverse, from a Virtalis perspective as well, is also about how we bring different devices to that solution. So whether you're a user on a mobile phone or device, through to working at home within a desktop environment or HMD as a field user, through to power walls and big cave installations where people are working in a collaborative fashion in different offices. And they could even be in different geolocations as well. Some of the solutions we operate today is a need to actually support users across different sites, either in the UK, in Europe, and even over in America, all at the same time, all collaborating as part of the same scene. And equally, as part of this, obviously, post-pandemic world where remote working has become much more key to part of these product and product development life cycles, how do we securely enable that content to be shared to within remote office workers and people across different territories, different countries, and again, even potentially across different organizations. So really, very high level diagram as to how our solutions are currently geared and are currently being positioned to take advantage of the metaverse and the virtual world. But in the center, as we term it, we have the Virtalis Cloud Hub. And that is where all the information and all the data that comes from the various different inputs and sources, be it from CAD and PLM, be it from data inputs from digital twins, be it from point cloud information, or even custom data sources, are essentially tagged and brought into this environment. They're then capable of being enriched and edited and created in even more immersive virtual scenes through, as we've talked about before, the Visionary Render, which is a core pillar and product of the Virtalis offering, through to the future development, which will also be up in the coming development cycles, where we'll be looking at also taking some of that functionality that exists today within our desktop application and starting to move that into cloud offerings as well. But the whole concept of the engineering metaverse is to be able to allow different steps of that product value chain to actually connect and influence the data contained within. So whether that's from design reviews, through to people connecting in the field, through to that information being used as part of training. But the core concept here is that everything is essentially in one place. Everything is being updated in real time. Designers, engineers, ultimately as models change, that information can be versioned and essentially pushed through all these different parts of that supply chain, these different operations, these different functions within your organization. So reuse of data is one of the key things around what we're essentially trying to promote here. The other elements of that is what is the power that contains within that data and within those virtual models as well. So how do you use that information to drive and change processes, look at your from a reporting perspective, and even influence potentially machinery on the factory floor through that switch API concept, where you can subscribe for events and ultimately see what is happening and respond in real time to information that we're seeing. So it's very high level, and I'm sure there'll be many questions on this within the Q&A. I'm going to hand over to Dimitri now to kick off that session. And if anybody wishes to obviously explore these concepts further, then feel free to discuss during that session.